until point one. The Cubs win the World Series. 10-5 touchdown! Kansas City. Damian Williams runs to immortality and will be remembered forever in the Chiefs' kingdom.
Welcome in to the Brawl Network podcast. Here's your host.
And welcome everybody to another live episode of the Brawl Network podcast. It is me, your producer, Jay Andrews. You can hit me up on Twitter at UPJ33. Tonight it is our usual cast of characters for Wednesday evening. It is Jake Vogel on Twitter at RealJakeVogel, and Sam Stevenson on the Twitter is SJSteve9. What's up, guys? How you doing?
What's up?
There's only three things in life that are guaranteed: death, taxes, and Wednesday's show is going to be awesome.
You didn't just do that, did you?
Yes, I did. I had to come in firing on cylinders to start this episode.
That was like the corniest of dad jokes, and you're like 12.
At least 13. We're going to be mispronouncing. You can make it wrong here.
All right. So, what are you guys doing this week before we get into the meat and potatoes of this show? What have you guys been up to this week? How's life hanging?
Until the news broke today, things were going great. Until some great training camp news came out that almost broke my heart into a million pieces for the Bears. If we want to start there.
Well, I guess if you just want to rip the Band-Aid off, I mean, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, for those, I mean, I'm sure most people know already, Bears running back David Montgomery, non-contact injury during practice today. Video aired later in the day. Seems he just almost fell, came up in a lot of pain. It has been diagnosed as a sprained groin, I think, or something like that, or a groin strain. I'm not totally sure on that. A lot of people feared that it was a tear, but it's not. And just the thought of David Montgomery not being able to play at all, but thankfully he should only be out for a couple weeks. Yeah, not great news to get for Bears fans. We already got enough going on as is, and this was tough to read. It was not a great way, not a great Wednesday news headline to start my day. The biggest concern though is Bears running back depth isn't great. Behind Montgomery, you obviously have Tariq Cohen, very versatile back, but the guy isn't a first down guy. He's 5'6", so that's a big one. And behind him, I guess if you call Cordell Patterson a running back, maybe, but otherwise you have two undrafted players in Ryan Nall and Artavius Pierce who don't really have a lot, in terms of their portfolio. Nall has barely any NFL experience, and Pierce is an undrafted rookie. So I'm a little nervous, to be honest, about what's going to be happening with the Bears run game So not great news for Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, we had the Earl Thomas deal in Ravenstown, so that actually broke a little bit earlier this week. So he's out of the building. He's gone. There was a lot more to the story than what was even published, but basically he had been not showing up to some meetings, claiming that he needed more time in between practices and meetings to wash his car. And just really not showing up and putting in the work that the rest of his teammates expected. So the Ravens had to cut ties with him. It hurts their cap situation a little bit, but their locker room and team chemistry is more important on a team that has Super Bowl aspirations and a legitimate chance than him being a headache.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wanted to ask you, what's the solution there at his position? Do you guys have an in-house guy, or are you thinking maybe there's a free agent out there they could maybe grab cheap? I was curious about that.
Yeah, I think they're just going to go with in-house at this point. They got Deshaun Elliott who's been in the building the last 2 years, but has been injured. And he's shown some promise in preseason, and he was a good player at Texas. He's been pretty rangy in practice and a nice versatile piece on the back end, but whoever we put back there isn't going to have the same raw talent and skill as a true single high safety as what we lost in Earl Thomas.
Jay, I don't know if you had any thoughts on the Earl Thomas situation, if you wanted to talk about that at all.
Well, the thing about Earl Thomas is Earl Thomas is one of those players where he is living off his reputation more than his on-the-field play. And I'm not saying that he's completely fallen off, but there comes a point in every athlete's career where you have to make a decision. Are you going to accept your athletic fate and kind of help out and start to be that coach and that leader on the field and kind of, make that next step in your evolution as an athlete so that you can prolong your career? A lot like Eric Weddle, who wasn't a Raven and athletically had lost a lot, but went to the Ravens and he immediately made them, you can attest to that, Jake, made their secondary better because he was
absolutely
willing to do the things that were necessary to help his team around him get better. I feel like Thomas is the opposite type of personality from what we've seen. It started in Seattle where he was getting disgruntled there, and now for this to happen on a team that is built on a foundation where it had previously guys that had big personalities that were passionate, loud, and not always easily controlled from outside perception, and Ed Reeds and Terrell Suggs and Ray Lewis's, and yet this guy can't integrate into that culture where they're willing to take a huge cap hit and just walk away from him.
Yeah.
That says something to the information that hasn't been released of what's been going on. It's not really so much about his on-the-field play, but that says something about who he is in the locker room, outside of the facility, in the facility, off the field.
Yeah, 100%. Something else I didn't touch on with that whole story was he got in a fight with Chuck Clark. I think he literally punched him. I don't know where, probably just a body shot, or maybe he punched the helmet and we didn't hear about it. But it's really rare to see a training camp fight that includes two guys on the same side of the ball, let alone the same position group. So that should have been a telling sign then. And the fact that they couldn't figure it out and that Earl wasn't being a good teammate and trying to learn the playbook and the calls the same way that Chuck Clark has is just a telling thing, and that's the reason he's gone.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned how rarely you see a fight on the same side of a team. I actually remember last year a similar situation happened with the Bears, not in the same regards to Earl Thomas, but Kyle Long got into a fight with a rookie. I don't think it was like a huge fight, just a quick skirmish, and it was interesting because, a guy like Kyle Long, who, say what you want about his injury history, was a pretty fundamental part of that Bears team and just the organization. And the Bears sat him in that preseason game and held him accountable. So it's interesting to me to think that I don't think the fight was the biggest factor into this cut. And you may attest to that. You may agree to that. But I definitely agree with you. There's a lot of outside factors going into it that I don't think a lot of fan base and a lot of NFL fans factored in. He's a talented guy. I don't know, couldn't figure it out in terms of that team thing. But interesting that you brought that up, though.
Yeah, absolutely. He was just struggling to attend meetings and stay in the playbook the same way that back of the roster guys were doing. So if you can't.
I think that comes to the comments and the way he was allowed to freelance a lot in Seattle. But it was because there was other players there that could play in that structure and the way that defense was designed. When you're not playing in a defense that's designed to allow a guy to free roam, it's a lot like the Steelers with Troy Polamalu back in the day. Now, if Troy goes to another defense, he can't pull that same crap. It's not designed to allow him to do that. You're leaving another teammate out to dry when you play that way. And so I think the first step in the problem that was created that caused this. Really, the biggest issue was, I think, his failure to realize he wasn't in Seattle anymore, and he couldn't be doing the things that he was used to doing, and he needed to change the way he was on the field and how he acted as a teammate and as a part of and a piece of that defensive unit as a whole.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of what you guys just said.
All right, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was going to say, we started the episode talking a little bit Bears. I actually have a question for you guys. It's not totally Bears related. What are your thoughts on Devontae Freeman, and how much money would you give him? A lot of Bears fans have been clamoring for us to go after a guy like Freeman. I personally, I have thoughts, but I'll share them after. I want to hear what you guys have to say. But I'm curious, what do you guys, just as NFL fans, what are your thoughts on Devontae Freeman right now, currently?
Do you want me to go, or do you want to go ahead, Jay?
Go ahead, Jake.
I mean, the past couple years, he hasn't shown much as a runner. He couldn't get it done in Atlanta, and I don't know if at this point he's a little bit too worn down and doesn't have much left in the tank to offer. But I understand in the Bears situation wanting to bring him in, even if he's just a complimentary piece. I feel like he could add some value, but you don't want to spend a bunch of money on a guy that could completely bust.
He's washed. He's a running back. He's 28 years old. He hasn't been productive in 2 years. You don't bring guys like that in. It's the same reason why it's stupid for the Atlanta Falcons to go out and pay Todd Gurley and act like the team that absolutely had the most to lose by letting him go if they believed he had anything left in the tank. Why would you take the cap hit they had to take to release him if you thought what the Atlanta Falcons think they're going to get out of Todd Gurley?
Yeah.
Running backs are the one position when the team that knows them the best goes, unless they're like young, when they're older like that, you don't go kick the tires on them. Because the tires aren't there's not enough tread on the tires to kick them down the road. No, I think it's a waste of time. I think the Bears, look, running back is the one thing where it doesn't matter how the prominence of the back is. Look at the Denver Broncos after Terrell Davis left. Where was the prominent drafted running back? Most of them were undrafted free agent nobodies that got 1,000 yards. Clinton Portis was the only guy there. And honestly, Clinton Portis probably in another team would have never had the draft capital eligibility to get what they got in a trade for him had he not been in that system. And he went to a similar system when he went to the Redskins and why he was so good. So running backs are an easy transition. They're easier to find. And so if you're the Bears, wait out on Montgomery. He's your stud running back, and just see what else these other guys have. And you might find a diamond in the rough or guys that maybe they only have 3 games, but who cares if that's all they have? It's a running back.
Yep. I have to agree with all of that. The undrafted guys can get it done nowadays, and they probably have for a long time. The Ravens have had a lot of success with it. I know they just drafted J.K. Dobbins at 55, and I'm really excited about what he can bring to Baltimore. But they have Gus Edwards as well. He was undrafted. In the past 2 years, he's put up over 700 yards apiece with Lamar Jackson. So if you're a Bears fan listening out there, don't worry, hang in. You got undrafted guys that can come out of the woodworks and make something happen.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you guys said that, because Bears Twitter, for some reason, every time there's a pending free agent, we all seem inclined to just want to go get him with all this imaginary cap space that we have. And I couldn't tell you how many times I saw the Devontae Freeman to the Bears tweets. It's the first thing, if you look up Devontae Freeman, it says Devontae Freeman Bears. And look, it's nothing against him as a player, but I think in a team situation where you guys kind of said it perfectly, like there's enough guys that can fill the gap until Montgomery's good to go. And there are some good free agents that you can get for vets minimum that are good placeholders. I think Spencer Ware is a free agent right now. The team did work out CJ. I'm going to butcher his last name. I think it's Prosis. I don't know how to. Thank you. And I just think the biggest thing is again, you guys said on the head perfectly. There's always undrafted guys who can step in, guys who just kind of get signed as bodies who can step in. And I looked at the Bears schedule. I mean, they're not playing the worst running defenses, but they're not playing the best either. I think they're going to be fine without him. But what are your thoughts on that? Because a lot of Bears fans are definitely clamoring for the thought of Devontae Freeman.
If I'm a Bears fan, Sam, I'm more worried that the Bears are spending a lot of PR and a lot of money and attention trying to sell you that a washed-up, overpriced, can't block, soft-ass, can't catch anymore thief of a tight end is going to help you win games this year in Jimmy Graham. That's what I would worry about if I was a Bears fan, not your running back situation. Because the funniest thing I've seen all month long, in fact, it might be the funniest thing I've seen all summer, is a Twitter picture portraying Jimmy Graham as a Terminator. The only thing Jimmy Graham is that you can project is freaking Gumby, all right? Because he's soft, he's chewy, and you don't know what he's going to do, but you damn know well that he is not going to be able to hold form when it matters most.
I see you saw my recent Brawl Network article, Jay.
Yeah, I did. I retweeted it and shared it on Facebook. You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Look, I think at this point anything's better than Trey Burton and Adam Shaheen, so I'm okay
Cole
with
Kmet.
Cole Kmet.
To me, why would you go get Cole Kmet, who really was a guy that is undersold as far as a talent, because the tight end hate lately and coming out of the draft has been ridiculous. You didn't need Jimmy Graham. I know you guys are desperate, and you went out and signed 552 tight ends to try to fill the void, hoping that you throw enough shit at the wall, something will stick. But Cole Kmet's the answer, and he's going to take some time. But Jimmy Graham, he was in the division. He stole like $20 million from the Packers, and then he went and convinced your front. That's why Ryan Pace should be fired. That's why, because he signed Jimmy Graham. If there's no other reason to fire a guy, it's you fire a guy when he is dumb enough to get duped, when he just watched another division rival in his team be duped by that same guy. He got duped that team. They finally got over to cut him, and then he walked right across the street with his little snap-happy hand, and he was like, oh, hey, I'm good. Look, it was all Aaron Rodgers' fault in the Packers. They didn't know how to use me. Give me $12 million. And they said, oh, yeah, we hate the Packers so much, we're dumb enough to believe you. Here's your check, and we'll fully guarantee it, damn near. Thank you, no thanks.
Yeah, that money still kind of makes me upset about it. I don't get it, because the Steelers, like a week and a half later, signed Eric Ebron to an even cheaper deal for less guaranteed money. I don't know.
$4.5 million.
I mean, obviously, we'll wait and see if Graham is more adjusted to this offense. And I think it also is going to depend on who starts at quarterback. Right now, a lot of people are saying Foles has been looking a lot better later into this week.
Sam, are you hearing yourself? Is either one of your quarterbacks Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Okay, if he couldn't produce with Aaron Rodgers, what makes you think he's going to get better with worse quarterback play?
Yeah, it was Aaron Rodgers and
yourself.
It was Aaron Rodgers and a bunch of scrubs at wide receiver too.
Yeah,
with all the injuries that the Packers had at wide receiver, I mean, Graham should have been ready, catching passes left and right, and that's not at all what we saw happen.
Look, I'm just a delusional Bears fan. I have to convince myself otherwise. No, it's a good point, though. I mean, hopefully Kmet really shapes up to be what a lot of people are hoping him to be. I think he's going to be great in this league, but rookie tight ends just statistically don't do great their first year, but things happen. And he's been adjusting pretty well from what we've heard from camp and stuff. Again, a lot of that speculation, but I'm excited to see what Kmet can do. That's all I want to say about the Bears tight ends at this point.
What do you got next for us, guys? I know you got we got the. Do you guys want to go to the fantasy stuff, or do you want to finish with the fantasy stuff? Because there's going to be a lot of arguing and shade thrown. So maybe we should go to your guys' super draft, so we don't get too
let's do
angry
that.
and you forget that.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
So quick recap, so we refresh your memories and everybody else's memories. We are doing the AFC North, NFC North super team draft, right? And so in the first round, Sam drafted defense. He got Jair Alexander, Kyle Fuller, Buster Screen, Eddie Jackson, and Harrison Smith. Well, Jacob did offense. He has OBJ, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Tyler Boyd. And the tight end, he's got his own Mr. Andrews neighborhood and Baltimore. In the second round, Sam did offense. He gets Adams, Robinson, and Galladay with Rudolph as his tight end. And for defense in the second round, Jacob has Marlon Humphrey, Des Ward, Marcus Peters, Fitzpatrick, and Earl
Thomas.
Yeah, Earl Thomas.
If we want, I can redact that one and put in a different safety since he's no longer.
This is not training camp Twitter where we redacted throws to redacted for redacted amount of yards. We're not doing that.
Okay.
Hey, maybe he signs with an AFC another AFC North team. Who knows?
Yes.
He's going to Cleveland.
He could.
No, but in all seriousness, do you want to put in Chuck Clark there instead?
Yeah, I think he would work pretty well with Minka, with Fitzpatrick being the free safety and Clark just being a smart, strong safety, dime
I'm not
linebacker kind.
redacted next to that name, though. I'm just scribbling it out just for your information.
Sounds good.
All right, so who's I think you went first last week, Jake, so I think we're going to let Sam go first this time. And he is back on defense. So we're going to start again on well, I don't even know what the hell you guys are doing here. So just Sam, do your thing.
How about so Jake's got a much better grasp of this. I feel like I want him to go first just because.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm switching it up on you,
Sam
Jake.
move past the buck.
Yep.
He's
All right.
crazy sometimes.
Let's start with the line then. Okay. We'll do O-line first. I'll just list all 5 starters. So at left tackle, we got Ronnie Stanley, All-Pro. At right tackle, we got Orlando Brown Jr. So those are my 2 Ravens. And then at guard, David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey at center, and other guard spot is Joel Bitonio.
Solid.
So we got 2 Steelers, 2 Ravens, and 1 Browns player. No Bengals, like I said last week.
Who was your other guard after? It was Pouncey, Bitonio, and
DeCastro, David DeCastro. Yeah, it's a really solid line.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to talk a little bit about why you picked each guy? And I think you're fair with not picking anyone from the Bengals, by the way. I think that's a fair assessment.
Does the Bengals have any offensive linemen, or did they just put O-line names next to their names?
I can't imagine.
The only guy worth note hasn't played, Jonah Williams.
Yeah.
So for me, DeCastro was a no-brainer starter. He's been one of the top guards in the NFL for most of his career. When you think Steelers offensive line, you think DeCastro. So that was easy. Center, I was between Pouncey and J.C. Treader, the Browns center. But I had to go with Pouncey. He's been doing it longer and just year in, year out has produced as long as he's healthy. Joel Bitonio is one of the best guards in football as well, and he plays for Cleveland. He has a little bit of guard tackle flexibility, but in at guard, he's even more special of a player. And then my bookends are the best in the AFC North. Ronnie Stanley had an amazing year last year. He was rated, I think, by PFF as having the best season in pass protection of any tackle in football last year. He also did pretty well in the run game. He was just graded out really, really nicely. And then Orlando Brown Jr. is kind of a mammoth of a man. He's famous for having a horrible NFL scouting combine, which dropped him in that draft. He could have been a borderline first-round talent. He ended up going in the third round to the Ravens in the same draft as the Lamar Jackson at 32 pick. So that's my O-line. I feel pretty comfortable going against Sam's D-line with that group.
All right. Well, that is a pretty solid O-line. So I will do my defensive line then. You'll be shocked to hear that there's going to be a lot of guys coming from the Windy City on this group. So for my defensive tackle, I went with Eddie Goldman. And then
Goldman
for my
opted out. Does that even count? How can you go Goldman over Akeem Hicks? He's not even playing this year.
Well, I was going to ask, does that count because he opted out, or are we just saying in general? Because if we're going off of last season, then he would be good. But if we're going off of this season, then I can pick somebody else.
Since I moved Earl, I'd say that you should go with guys that are playing this year.
All right, that's fair. All right, hang on. I got to pull up my list really quick. I can say my defensive ends, though, and then I'll pull up my backup D tackle. For my D ends, Akeem Hicks is listed as a defensive end, not tackle. So I'm going to go with Akeem Hicks, and then I'm going to go with Daniel Hunter for my other defensive end. And then, hold on, I got to pull this list up again. I knew this was going to happen.
Wouldn't he be an edge player for you?
I looked into it. He's technically listed as a D end.
In what system do they run?
Hold on. I'll have to pull that one up.
4-3.
Yeah, I thought they ran a 4-3. So if he's a D end and a 4-3, then really he's an edge rusher.
That's fine. I was going to say, because a lot of these were listed differently, and I went with just a 3-4.
You know what? We're going with a 3-4, but you know what? Daniil Hunter, it is what he is. He picked him. He's a beast.
Yeah. And then, all right, I found my guy. Hang on.
I swear to God, if you don't name the right name here, I might choke the shit out of you. For defensive tackle in the 3-4 in the NFC North, it's like a no freaking brainer here.
Well, that makes me nervous now that I'm going to pick the wrong person. Hold on. I should have known that this would happen. You know what? I'm going to go with he was going to be one of my reserve guys, and to be honest, he was a great rotational player last year for the Bears. I'm going to go with Nick Williams.
All right, your D tackle?
Yes, I am. Nick was awesome last year as a rotational guy, and he definitely deserves the money he got from Detroit. He was such a spark plug for this defensive line. Stepped up pretty well for when a Hicks went down, and I believe Nichols had some issues with his hands last year. And then I think Akeem Hicks is a monster. He might actually be part Bear. He's so explosive, and he just comes.
Who's your outside linebackers?
I was gonna wait until we did running backs, but I can do outside linebackers now.
Yeah, you just go ahead and do that.
He's got five. He's got 5 offensive linemen. You're running a 3-4, so you got to have your 5 defensive linemen.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And a 3-4, your edge is part of your defensive line. Your outside backers.
So yeah, so I'll do my outline. I guess totally makes sense. All right, outside linebackers. This is kind of obvious. Khalil Mack, and I went with Robert Quinn. I'm gonna take 2 Bears guys here.
Solid.
Okay, so there's 2 major flaws in this list here of just stupidity. Okay, first of all, he takes some half-piped nitwit scrub rotational guy at defensive tackle in a 3-4 when the youngest, most dominant defensive tackle in a 3-4 in the NFC North just got a mega deal in Kenny Clark, who, by the way, had 6.5 solo tackles and 12 sacks tackles for losses when he's being double-teamed because he's a 2-gap nose tackle zero technique. But you can take Nick Williams. And Robert Quinn played in a 4-3 down lineman last year and couldn't do enough for the team to keep him when the most dominant edge rusher in the entire NFC North wasn't Khalil Mack last year. It was number 55, the snubbed Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, if I were you, I would have gone Zadarius, Khalil, and then tried to get Daniil Hunter on the team too.
Yeah, I to be honest, I just really like the Quinn pairing here with Mac. And while, yes, we are doing a 3-4 defense, I don't know. I like Quinn a lot.
Quinn as a stand-up outside linebacker was quickly moved out of each place he was there. He just doesn't. He's a down 3-4 guy, and even then, he's been overpaid for his production his entire career.
Well, I'm happy with my squad, though. I know
you are, Sam, because you're a Bears guy. That's why.
Yeah, all right. I got some Packers.
Snake draft. All right, you got O-line now there, Sammy.
All right, so I didn't avoid your Packers here, so don't worry about that. I'll go from the middle and I'll go out. For center, I went with Corey Linsley. For offensive guards, I went with Elton Jenkins and Cody Whitehair. And then for offensive tackles, I went with Brian O'Neill and I'm going to probably butcher his last name, David Bakhtiari. Did I say that right?
Bakhtiari.
Bakhtiari, thank you.
It's easy to remember because it's just overemphasized. Bakhtiari.
Bakhtiari, thank you. He was an obvious one. I mean, he was probably one of the best offensive linemen in the NFC, probably in the league. And same thing with Corey Linsley. I mean, those guys just don't let anything through. Elton Jenkins is a solid vet as well. I really like Brian O'Neill. And I know the Bears' offensive line struggled last year, but Cody Whitehair has shown that he's pretty solid and he can move around between center and guard. And I just think he's decent in pass protection. And I'm hoping that he will obviously step up a little bit this year for my team. But I've always liked Whitehair, and I think he's pretty solid at guard, so that's why I took him there. But that is my offensive line.
I think I would have taken the
Nice.
young kid Garrett Bradbury over Corey Linsley, honestly.
I was thinking about that. I was debating between those two. I just took Linsley here just because
Linsley is the more proven guy, but I think Bradbury overall is going to end up being the better offensive lineman. He just had a rough year, as a rookie going in that division with that defense and kind of being thrown in the fire. And it's hard as a center when you don't have two solid guys on either side that you can trust and help you. Linsley has had two guys for the most part of his career to help him on either side and bring him along. Now, he's good, but there's a reason why he's not going to get signed. He's going to be the odd man out in Green Bay because he's a solid player, but just like J.C. Treader, you're not looking to pay solid guys, big contracts. And he's gotten paid plenty, but I think he's not a bad pick, but I definitely like Bradbury's upside and overall athleticism over Corey Linsley in that division.
Yeah, I was debating between the two. I just went with the more seasoned vet. I think if you looked at these two players in the next 3 to 4 years, I definitely agree with you. But I went with Linsley here just because, again, I think he's proven himself on that offensive line. You're definitely right. He's had some pretty solid guys next to him. But I went with Linsley here because I think in this all-star offense, he would have two pretty solid guys next to him as well. So I'm going Linsley here, but I do like that pick as well.
All right, Jake, you're up. You've got your defensive line, including the linebackers.
All right. Let's see. For me, the D-line was tricky going with just three guys. But I'm going to start with a Pittsburgh Steeler, Cameron Hayward. He had a great year in 2019. He's just been a consummate pro, pretty dominant over the past 3-year stretch. So he's an easy fit into that defense. Next guy is a new arrival to Baltimore. He started his career in Arizona, then he played in Jacksonville. His name's Calais Campbell. Yeah, he's a mammoth of a man. He's a mountain.
End or a defensive tackle?
He's an end.
They got him listed as an end?
Yeah, I'd call him an end. He plays a little bit more outside. He can even line up out wide if you want him to. But he's pretty versatile, so I'm just going to put these three guys in here, and then the defensive coordinator, Wink, can figure out what to do with them. Then the last guy has to be Geno Atkins from Cincinnati. They finally get a player in here. Well, they had Tyler Boyd, but they get another one here with Geno Atkins. He's been a stud his whole career. He had a down year last year, but still was rated really highly from PFF and a bunch of other people that watch all Bengals games said that he was still a productive player, even though he dropped off a little bit. So I'll go with those three guys. And then for my outside linebackers, I got to go with TJ Watt, Pittsburgh Steelers, brother of JJ Watt, an early favorite of mine for defensive MVP, and Myles Garrett from Cleveland. Give me those two guys on the edge, and good luck.
Yeah, that's a solid outside linebacker group. I like TJ Watt a lot. I definitely agree with the potential defensive player of the year because I mean that kid's good.
You know, looking at these player lists, your guys' O-lines versus your guys' D-lines, the trench warfare of these super teams right now would be freaking epic. Like, this is a lot of immobile object versus immovable force or whatever, however that goes. Like, this is some pretty stacked defensive, offensive line. This would be interesting when you stack it up on paper right here. This is much more interesting, I think, than last week's DBs versus wide receiver skill positions. This one would be a difficult matchup to really figure out who's going to come out on top the majority of the time.
Yeah,
I was about to say I will definitely say that I definitely agree with that. I do like Jake's kind of beefier guys here in this situation. I would give him almost a tiny edge. But I definitely agree. This would be a really fun kind of big boys fighting each other. That'd be a lot of fun.
If only we could make that game happen instead of the Pro Bowl where the players are actually playing hard, but then we wouldn't have the teams we root for healthy. So,
Very true.
All right, so what are the next positions you guys are going at? You are up on the snake draft, Jake.
Let's do running back.
That was good.
So I think we're both picking two.
Yes.
So for me, I have to go with Nick Chubb, former Georgia Bulldog, one of my favorite running backs to watch in all of football right now, and I enjoyed him at UGA as well. He's just a dominant rusher, and his hands are underrated too. He has to be RB1, and then Joe Mixon from the Bengals would be my second. I give him the edge over Ingram, Hunt, and Dobbins. Dobbins could end up taking that second job, but as a rookie, it's too early to say. So I'd go with Joe Mixon, who's been the only special thing about the Bengals offense the past couple years, and Nick Chubb in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, Chubb had a disservice with the coaching last year. That guy could have rushed for a bajillion yards. So I really like that pick. Did you consider James Conner at all or no? I'm curious.
I have him on my list, but I have him behind the guys that I listed. Yeah.
Alrighty, so then that puts you at middle linebacker then.
Yes, it does. And this is going to be another easy one. I'm going to go with two in-house guys again, Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith. Ever since entering the league, Roquan has been great on this defense. Just seems like he's always on the ball tackling guys. I think this year is going to be a big kind of prove-it year for him. I honestly think if this defensive pass rush and stuff is firing on all cylinders, I could see him getting his first Pro Bowl nod this year. And I just like Trevathan a lot. I was debating between a couple other guys, but ever since Trevathan joined this team, he's just been such a key leader on this defense. I see him being the leader out in this all-star team, honestly. And I can't get over this one clip of him last year doing that little stop move on the Washington football team now, where he kind of stopped for a second and went. He's just got such great football IQ, and these two just pair with each other really well. So I got to go with my guys from the Windy City.
Yeah, Trevathan is a nice player, but he doesn't hold Michael Kendrick's jockstrap on his best day. So
Yeah.
Kendricks is such a game changer and so underrated and disrespected at his position. I don't understand why nobody can watch him on tape and just he can fly, he can thump, he can cover. He does it all, and year after year he's consistent, he's healthy, and yet nobody gives him any love. In the division, outside the division, you just pass him up over and over again, and he is one of the best middle linebackers in the entire league, and nobody talks about the guy.
I did have Kendricks on my list. I was debating between him and Trevathan. I went with my guy from Chicago, but I do definitely agree. I think he is severely underrated, and he's a key part of that Vikings defense for sure.
You can pick another position, Sam.
You got running backs in the snake draft, Sam.
All right, so with running backs, I had my RB1 as Dalvin Cook, and my RB2 is Aaron Jones. By far, definitely the best two running backs in the NFC North. The stuff that Dalvin's able to do, I mean, I got two siblings who are Florida State alumni, and watching Dalvin in college was just incredible. And his transition to the league, I know he tore his ACL, but since then he's just been such a spark plug for that offense. Definitely a favorite weapon of Kirk Cousins. And, as much as I hate seeing him run all over my team, Aaron Jones is a solid running back, and he's been a key part of that Packers offense, in my opinion, last year. I drafted him on my fantasy team, which we'll talk about later. But those are my two RBs.
Very solid group. Can't argue with that.
Those were kind of no-brainers until the other guys have to prove anything else. Those are kind of it in that division. So.
100%.
Right. For me, I will start with linebackers, and then I guess I will move on to quarterback. So last year there were two Devons that came out into the league. One was Devin White and one was Devin Bush. I'm going with the Steeler because Devin White is not in the AFC North. Devin Bush was awesome for Pittsburgh last year. He really made that unit come together. It was the combination of him and Minkah Fitzpatrick that kept a Ben Roethlisberger-less Steelers team in contention for the playoffs. He was just awesome. Really athletic player, good in coverage, and he's going to improve a ton in his second year. Then the other guy, because the Browns and the Bengals have no exciting guys at the position, I'm going with the Ravens' first-round pick this year, Patrick Queen out of LSU. LSU's producing a ton of really fast, athletic linebackers, and I think Queen's the next in line to become a Pro Bowler pretty soon. So that would be my two-headed monster at linebacker. Any comment on that?
You know what? You got to give it to Queen because there's not a lot of linebackers in the NFC North. There just isn't. I mean, middle linebackers, off-ball guys. Even though there's a lot of 3-4s, that position hasn't been solidified across the division really. And the one most prominent guy left and went to the AFC East. And he's been injured since he left anyway. So I mean, it's not like you lost anything.
No, I was going to say, I like that Queen pick. It's bold. I think he's going to be really good for your guys' defense. I like that pick a lot. And yeah, you said enough about Bush, but he was awesome for the Steelers. He was a lot of fun to watch. It's a good group.
Yeah, thanks.
So who's your quarterback? I can only imagine.
I mean, I'm wearing a jersey right now, and I don't think anybody else in the division holds a candlestick to him currently. That's Lamar Jackson. Unanimous MVP. There's only been one other one. His name's Tom Brady. He's in Tampa Bay right now. LJ's the answer. He's about to blow some people's minds in year 3. He might not be an MVP this year, but he's still going to be a really solid player.
He is the best quarterback in that division. I mean, let's be real. I mean, Ben is long in the tooth, and we don't know how that arm is going to really allow him to do that. Ben is just at his age and the injury. You just don't know what you're getting. And he doesn't have the weapons that he did the last time he was on the field. Okay, he's lost a lot around there, gotten older, injured. So we just don't we don't know if he's really the best quarterback even on that roster as far as when it comes to producing on the field anymore. So Baker Mayfield, it hasn't proven that he can be consistent or trusted enough. And Joe Burrow, in my opinion, is a bust. So,
Yep, I saw that coming.
it's not that hard. Sam,
So-
you're going to have to take quarterback now because we're doing quarterback. So we're going to make you take your quarterback because that's interesting.
Yeah, this one's easy as much as it hurts. Aaron Rodgers. He's the best quarterback in the division. I mean, he is time and time proven that no matter through injury or throwing to practice squad receivers that he's going to continue to make plays. And every time that he's had to step out, that team has struggled on offense just enough that I think that, oh man, maybe this is finally the year. And then he comes back in and just tears your heart out. He is a phenomenal quarterback. He's super intelligent, great with his arm. I mean, dude's got a cannon and by far the best quarterback in this division. Definitely goes Aaron Rodgers, 100%.
Yep. Do you want to do just the special teams group real fast? Kicker, punter, long snapper?
Yeah, let's do it. I got mine set.
Real quick. You don't even need to explain them because they're just special teams, guy. They're special.
Yep. So punter and long snapper, I went with two Bears guys, Pat McDonald, Patrick Scales. And then with kicker, NFC North kickers are so I went with Matt Prater just because he's a seasoned vet. He didn't have a great year last year, but he's better than I think any of the other options. So those are my guys.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going with...
So the question, you said you didn't like any of the other options, but the most accurate kicker over the last 3 years is in the division, and yet you didn't say you had any good options there, and you forgot about Mason frickin' Cosby. 98% of his kicks over the last 3 years he has made. He is number 1 or number 2 in percentage over the last 3 seasons, and he happens to reside in the division you just said didn't have any good kickers.
No, I remembered him. I just decided to ignore him just to make you mad.
You're an ass.
All right.
All right, go ahead, Jacob.
I'm going with the Wolfpack. That is what the Ravens special teams core calls themselves. Justin Tucker, the actual best kicker in the game, and will go down as the best kicker of all time. Sam Cook, the punter, and Morgan Cox, the long snapper.
It's such a sick position group, man. Wolfpack.
That was pretty good. All right, and we're going to move on because we only got a few minutes left, and we want to discuss a few issues over the weekend. Like, I made you guys pretty mad, I feel like there's some things that you guys want to get off your chest after Saturday's draft at me that you just couldn't say in the chat, and so because you didn't want to type that many words. So
I don't know.
What's going
I don't
on?
know what you're talking about. I had a great draft this weekend, and you did take David Montgomery, who I was kind of hoping I could pick up, but look where we are now. But I had a great draft personally. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know. I thought I did great. I know my
team's gunning for first place right now.
Oh yeah, so is mine.
Okay. Glad we're on the same page.
It doesn't matter because I have the 3 best PPR points leaders in the entire game. So nobody's touching me at wide receiver 1. Nobody is touching me at flex, and nobody's touching me at tight end. Sorry.
Who's your flex?
George Kittle.
Oh, okay. You went with another tight end as your flex.
Tight ends.
Man. I don't know.
At least I'm locked in at tight end too. Glad I got that position group cleared out.
I got Saquon and LJ. I don't know why you guys let me do that.
I to be honest, when I was doing this draft, I had definitely guys I wanted to focus on.
Because you picked right before me, that's why you got to do that.
And I just had to pick a couple guys that I knew would make you guys mad. And we hyped up J.K. Hobbins last week, so I snagged him before Jake could. And
it really did.
That was bad.
These great things about Mark Andrews, so I picked him as well.
Yep.
Out of both those spots. That was just to spite you guys.
I'm getting a lot of flack for the way I drafted because they're trying to tell me that it's not going to work out and there's all this upside in flyers. That's what fantasy is all about, baby. It's about
100%.
upside in flyers in PPR. Usage. I listen to all the fantasy guys over there. I listen to our fantasy guys at the Sleepers podcast, Deep Sleepers podcast. I listen to the Daily Brawl podcast things. I listen to all the other podcasts out there, fantasy, and I had all these notes. And in the end, you guys let me get Can't Guard Mike. It was over as soon as I drafted him. You do really like he's 50 points a week. Everybody else is just like
Well, I had the first overall pick. I wasn't going to take him over Christian McCaffrey.
The Saints finally have a number 2, though.
True.
Really? He's like
Yeah,
3,000 years old and can't stay healthy ever.
If he's healthy, Emmanuel Sanders is a number 2.
If I don't
He's
trip
the number
down the
2.
stairs twice a day, my head wouldn't be so swelled up. But you know what I mean?
On.
It happens.
I don't know. I still think Michael Thomas is going to have over 100 receptions and well over 1,000 yards. So it's no big deal.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't pass up on Christian McCaffrey over Michael Thomas.
We talked about this. You're picking him in a year where he's going to blow his knee out.
That's why I went Saquon. Well, actually, I picked second, but it's his year to actually be healthy. So
true, very true.
I went with guys that don't have any NFL tread on their tires and are healthy and can stay healthy. And so,
did we talk about how many rookies you drafted?
I drafted a ton of rookies because rookie running backs are the way to go, and I've got the best handcuff in the entire running back class with Latavius Murray. He gets all the goal line carries to steal points from Kamara, and the minute Kamara's 160-pound frame breaks on him again, he's going to get all the yardage and carries that he got too, just like last year. And so it is what it is. It's Dunsey. He's a starting running back as soon as dude plays a game and a half and stubs his toe.
I definitely followed that path a little bit too. I tend to stay away from rookies for the most part, but last year my fantasy team struggled at running back, so I grabbed Zach Moss too, just because he's interesting, and again I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that might bloom halfway through the season or something. But yeah, I like the approach of taking young running backs. I'm a fan.
I also nabbed one of them with Cam Akers, who could be one of the most productive rookie running backs this year on a team that doesn't have a true number 1. So
no, and I think when it comes to fantasy, I think sometimes, again, we get stuck on the names, and running backs cycle through about every 3 years. And so if you're not trying to figure out who the next running back is, you end up drafting that guy that everybody's had the consensus top, and you end up getting him in a year where he falls off or gets injured or things just don't go right and he just doesn't do well enough for you. And so I think running back is one of the few positions, especially in fantasy, where if you can find a guy that you know is going to get high usage, the likelihood of him doing well for you and even in fantasy is a pretty good risk to take, in my opinion.
I 100% agree on that. Wide receiver is a little bit more risky just because a lot of years guys bust out of the first round or whatever. Running back is a safer bet. But if you get a guy like CeeDee Lamb, like you picked, I don't think you need to really be afraid that he's going to, have a bad year. So.
Well, and he's kind of the third or fourth option and going to play a lot of slot in that 22 personnel in Mike McCarthy. And if you watched Randall Cobb, the reason he got paid was those 2 good years with Jordy Nelson coming out of the slot, Devontae and Jordy on the outside, Cobb's in. CeeDee's a bigger slot guy, and maybe he's not everything that everybody hyped up athletically, but he's going to get opportunities because you have to pay attention to Cooper. You got to pay attention to Galladay, and so there's going to be opportunity, and he's a bench guy. I think Crowder, for me right now, is the surefire number 1 in just pure usage when they got to throw the ball. He's the only guy that he's a veteran, so that's more he's my flex guy, because I feel confident in my stable guy that's going to be consistent in Michael Thomas is my number 1, and I like Hollywood Brown as the deep threat complement to a Michael Thomas as my wide receiver 2. I think that balances out my wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 as far as points, big playability, and just usage and overall in a PPR. And that was part of the philosophy of it. It seems like they were scattered around. The only real thing that threw a loop at everything was the Kelsey Kittle thing for you guys.
Yeah, you took both of them.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
everything else has kind of got a pretty pure logic from what I was listening to on all these podcasts. But nobody can get their head around why I would draft both Kittle and Kelsey in back-to-back rounds with the second and third picks in my draft. Kelsey's he's a wide receiver, bona fide, like pretty much in a PPR league. And Kittle, like, if you put him at flex, who else is dominating? You're getting more points guaranteed every week out of your one flex position than most people can. That's why they're a flex. Like, I can set and forget Kittle at flex and not worry about it.
I can't ever bash the Kittle pick because I would have done the same thing. However, he does have a couple weeks out of the year, and it may change this year, where he does not really get involved in the offense to the level that a Travis Kelce does. And that's because
flex.
Yeah, I mean, that's because he's such a good blocker. He's almost like another offensive lineman out on the field, and it just depends on the game script. If they just want to run the ball down people's throats, they can, because they have George Kittle, the monster out there, who can just like eat up blocks left and right. Guys trying to get to the running back in their outside zone, inside zone scheme.
Yeah.
Dude loves the block.
What do you think about Crowder being an AFC guy, Jacob? Jamison Crowder for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the Jets' offense, to be honest.
No.
But he is
be behind, which means they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and he's their only option, really. That's my logic in that.
Yeah, I really like Crowder in the games that I've seen him play. He's a good. He does a lot of in-breaking routes, kind of like a slot guy there. But he's very productive. He just has to stay healthy, and that's the thing about Jets wide receivers. They had who's the other guy that was breaking onto the scene in fantasy, and then he just kept on getting banged up.
Well, I can't even pronounce his name, but it was like Equalabwe, or I don't know. I just butchered that terrible. I'm not even going to try to say it again.
I think I've butchered like 3 guys' names on this show.
I'm not doing it again. I hate butchering.
Well, that guy's no longer on the Jets, so you don't have to worry about it. But they have Perriman, and they got Crowder, and who else?
Mims.
That's about. I think they grabbed one more player, but who knows? Sam Darnold or Joe Flacco throwing the ball, that might make a difference.
Who knows? Yeah. All right, guys. Let's get to the final words for the evening. Sam, you can start us off because you ain't said anything for a while.
So I actually had a quick question for you because I meant to bring him up last week and I forgot. We talked about 2020 rookie quarterbacks last year. What are your thoughts on Jordan Love?
Jordan Love is a guy, when you watch him on tape, you want to turn on his 18 tape, not his 19. And 18 he had a team around him that is more. It's more of a measuring stick of what he can be and what he's capable of if he has just decent talent around him. And he'll even tell you that in 2019 he was trying to do too much. He was throwing and making throws that when he let go of it, he knew, oops, I shouldn't have done that. And when you hear a young quarterback talk like that is speaking to something that you can't teach. That's self-awareness, and that tells you that he it's not just about whether you're coachable or not. Are you self-aware of your mistakes so that when you make them, it's not always up to the coach to do that. And if you can be that type, especially at the quarterback position, I think it's easier to mold the guy and fix the problems that everybody bags on him about. Now, here's the funny thing going through the draft process this year and then the minute he was drafted. All I heard from everybody talking up to it was, oh, this is the next Patrick Mahomes. He's got all this arm talent and da-da-da. He can move around. He's a big guy. He's bigger than Mahomes, but he's just as athletic. Da-da. He's next. The Packers draft him, and he's like, I don't know why they would draft him. He's such a project. He had 18 interceptions last year. It was like you couldn't have flipped the coin any faster on a guy being the next big thing because of where he was drafted and the narrative that wanted to be drawn up. It was like, Well, 5 minutes ago, before they turned in the pick, he was the next. He got next. All right, and so I think that maybe when you look at both sides of that, guys, it's like most things, it's a regression to the mean. Somewhere in the middle right now is the truth about Jordan Love. And if we're somewhere in the middle between the next Patrick Mahomes and, oh my God, he's a project and he's got time, I think your chances of him leaning towards the next Patrick Mahomes are much greater than the bust factor. Time will tell, but I'm not mad about it. It's just confusing about the timing. And I understand their logic, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right thing to do, and only hindsight is gonna tell us the truth here.
Yeah, I was curious because when we were talking about quarterbacks last week, it was totally a name that escaped my head, and I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it.
I'll tell you this: I feel more confident analyzing their film that Jordan Love's career will actually be somewhat decent compared to. I just think Burrow is just a bust. I think he's overhyped. I think his arm talent and everything that he had around him, and still coming up short and having those plays have to be made for him, he's not going to get away with that. And I just don't. I would. Even if Jordan Love is overdrafted, his arm talent alone is going to give him a better chance to succeed in this league than Joe Burrow on his best day. That's just the way it is. That's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's all I got from my questions. I don't know if you want to say anything else, Jay.
I don't have any questions.
All right. Well,
yeah.
Final words then.
Oh man. You guys really nagged me this episode a little bit. I gotta say that, but this was a lot of fun. I really liked doing those super teams. That was a lot of fun.
Yep, I had a lot of fun. Enjoyed the fantasy draft as well as our super teams. I think it'd be a really great battle. I'd give the edge to AFC North, but I want to hear your thoughts about it, everybody. So hopefully we can get some conversation going on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and any sort of social media that we can link up the podcast. So that's all I have to say.
These guys are going to make some documents, and we're going to get one of our graphics guy to make us a graphic or something. Put these up, and then you guys will get a poll up on the Twitter, and you guys can vote on whose super team is better, the NFC North Sam squad or the AFC North Jacob squad. I think it'll be a good one. But we definitely got to get something on where everybody can take a look at the full rosters, the practice squad guys, and make a decision on that. So we'll get our graphics guy at the Brawl Network, one of them, to do that. Justin does wonderful things, so you never know what that guy can come up with. We have a great staff, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Jake, your final word.
Thank you guys for doing this another week. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at RealJakeVogel or at Brawl Ravens. And stay safe out there. Stay healthy. Continue to love one another amidst the crazy stuff that's going on.
All right, that's the show for tonight. I want to thank both Sam and Jake for once again on a Wednesday evening, especially Sam, for me nagging him all night like I'm his, I'm just his dad, yelling at him and punishing him and telling him to go to the corner because he's stupid for doing things he does. He's a great kid. We all love him. Hit him up on Twitter at SJSteve9 for all of your Bears content. And, he writes some great pieces. You want to go check him out on thebrawlnetwork.com. And for all your Ravens coverage, hit up Jacob Vogel at RealJakeVogel. Myself is at UPJ33. And on Instagram, I am at J_033. Hit up the show on the Brawl Network at Network Brawl. We are the podcast, the flagship show there. And also hit up the website, thebrawlnetwork.com. Go there, sign up for free. It's your one-stop shop. The Bro has it all, baby. And give them some love by follow, liking, and sharing anywhere you can listen to podcasts. On Instagram, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Search Network Brawl. I'll be back again tomorrow, Thursday, with Tim Rodriguez and Brett Lagasse for Thursday night. Peace out.